Hello, everybody. My name is Rux. I'm a Western tropical astrologer, and today we are going to be talking about the full moon in Aquarius. This is coming up on the 9th of August. It is happening at 7:54 a.m. GMT time, so of course you can adjust that for your own time zone. This full moon is taking place at 16 degrees 59 minutes of Aquarius. What does that mean? It means that if you have in your natal chart planets, angles, important points around 16, 17 degrees of the fixed signs, you are going to feel this full moon the most. What are the fixed signs, you might ask? Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio. You might also be thinking, Rux, you always tell us who's gonna like this full moon. It's those of you who have planets or angles around 16 to 17 degrees of Gemini, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aries. Now, the thing about this full moon, though, is it is going to be chaotic. I think chaotic is the word. I'm going to dive into the astrology of it. There's so much going on in the sky. The astrology is literally off the scale. And I know if you listen to horoscopes on the internet, like this one, you might be thinking, hey, astrologers always say that. There's always something going on. It's always surprising, shocking, disruptive, da-da-da-da-da. Well, this particular astrological event really is going to be disruptive, surprising, shocking, unexpected, you name it. That's why I said chaos. Chaos is a good word. What is going on? First and foremost, we have to think about Aquarius from an archetypal perspective, from a symbolic perspective. What is Aquarius about, energetically speaking? Aquarius in astrology is about science, it's about technology, it's about innovation. It is a sign focused on progress, it's a sign focused on sustainability, on humanitarian goals. It is a sign that is focused on society at large and the greater good, okay? This full moon is probably going to bring up big, massive announcements affecting wide portions of society. And what sort of announcements are we likely to receive? It could have something to do with the direction in which technology is headed. It could have something to do with innovation in general. Restructuring is probably also a massive, massive, massive focus. Restructuring of how certain communities work, how they function, restructuring in terms of hierarchy, in terms of who leads certain communities, who leads certain organizations, big organizations. So at a collective level, keep an eye on big organizations in the sort of like technological sphere. They might have, again, really, really, really important announcements to make. And these announcements are probably going to affect, you guessed it, wide portions of society. Let's also look a little bit at what the ruler of this lunation is doing, Saturn. So Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius. Saturn is going to be in Aries. That again tells us the focus is going to be, at the time of the full moon, on new rules, new systems, new structures, new frameworks. Saturn is also going to be conjunct Neptune. It has been conjunct Neptune since May. We can also expect the dissolution of existing structures, of existing systems. So new rules come in place and old rules kind of like go out the window. A new foundation is being built, but it is being built on quite shaky ground, if you ask me, and it's probably going to take a while for this new foundation to be built. And in the meantime, a lot of people might experience quite a bit of confusion, uncertainty, chaos, and a lot of novelty that they're not really going to know how to navigate. I'm just going to say it, Neptune is generally a planet that brings a sense of confusion, potentially illusion. It conceals things. So we have new rules, but we also have, fog. So in the midst of this fog, Mars is going to be in Libra, and it's going to be opposing Saturn in Aries. Mars in Libra fights for justice. It fights for fairness, and it also fights on behalf of others. But as it opposes Saturn and Neptune, it hits a wall. So we can expect certain fights, certain actions, certain initiatives to hit a wall. A really big one. And we might generally feel a little bit restricted and frustrated in terms of rules and the establishment potentially, and maybe figures of authority getting in the way, blocking our path forward. Now, you thought this was over. No, it's not over. The astrology is even more complicated than that. Mars is opposing Saturn and Neptune, but it is in a harmonious aspect at the time of the full moon to Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. Dun, 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 dun. So as certain fights, as certain initiatives, as certain actions are bumping into a massive wall, they're hitting a huge bump in the road, Uranus comes in and it brings in the unexpected solutions. It brings in the sort of like surprising, original, unique ideas. And Pluto comes in and says, hey, I'm gonna excavate something that was like buried, that was hidden, that was not necessarily accessible, and I'm gonna help you in this initiative of yours. So a fight that is hitting a wall on one front seems to be receiving dramatic, unexpected, incredibly powerful support on a different front, I'd say. So our initiatives might find a completely novel and, I repeat, surprising route to materialize. There is also a possibility that other people might come into our lives, and they might help us, and they might sort of like clear out the path for us, and they might kind of like help us get to what we wanted to get to. They might help us achieve our goal in ways that we did not see coming. So just because one door is closing, it doesn't mean that other doors will not open. On the absolute contrary, I feel like the theme of this full moon is when one door shuts, another door opens. You didn't see this coming. What are you going to do with it? You've got to move fast. You've got to take advantage of it. People are here to help you. So we might actually have the power to move forward. That's the gist of it. And the ability to move forward, even though the existing route was blocked. So to summarize, there's a lot going on. There's going to be this focus, if you ask me, at the time of this full moon on a big fight, maybe even collectively, on a big conflict, a clash between justice, what is fair, what is harmonious, and the establishment or established structures. And as this clash is happening, an unexpected solution comes up with new ideas, new people, unexpected allies, and a sudden resolution might come to pass in a very, very sort of like powerful, intense, transformative way. And this is probably going to affect a lot of people. We have a lot of air in the sky going on at the time of this full moon. There's a lot of conversations, a lot of people getting involved, a lot of talks, a lot of ideas being thrown in. There's also something else coming to mind. Some people might be reaching some sort of an agreement. Some institutions, some organizations might be entering an alliance, might enter a partnership, they might team up. And we probably never saw these institutions or people coming together beforehand. So it's probably going to be like, whoa, this is new, this is unexpected, this is not how I saw things evolving. So people and ideas and organizations coming together and collaborating and forming unexpected alliances and partnerships is probably going to be a theme. And also something else comes to mind. My enemy's enemy is my friend. Is that what they say? I think that's what they say. So some entities might come together in order to fight off and block and push against a joint adversary. So much going on in the sky. I will say this. Mercury is also retrograde at the time of this full moon, so we can expect themes from the past to come back to our attention. Maybe some of these conversations that are happening have already occurred in the past, but maybe they did not lead anywhere. Maybe finally, after a lot of like back and forth, conversations lead to an alliance. I would also look back, if I were in your shoes, at the lunation at the new moon in Aquarius, because this is a full moon, at the new moon in Aquarius that took place earlier this year in January, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check. Yes, January, 29th of January. So have a think about what was going on in your life, end of January, beginning of February, because this full moon could bring things to a peak, could bring closure in regards to the themes that were on our mind at the beginning of February and at the end of January as well, folks. Now, obviously, we're going to go into the update for each of the 12 zodiac signs. And of course, before we do that, especially for those of you who are new to my channel, I do want to share something really, really, really important, which is I'm a full-time consulting astrologer, and if you want to work with me, if you're at a crossroads, if you're looking for answers, insights, cosmic guidance, if you're looking to understand how you can make the most of the cards that you've been dealt by the universe, how you can align yourselves with the cosmic forces, how you can work with the cosmic tide as opposed to against it, you can find me on my website. You can book my services on my website, which is writteninthestars-astrology.com. You can book a personal astrological consultation via my website. I've also left the link in the description box and in the pinned comments. Generally, the waiting time is between a few weeks to a month. So you're always going to see when you go to the link that I've pinned in the comments, you're always going to see what the waiting time is like. And also very important to mention, in my work, I do natal chart interpretation. I do forecasting, which is what we're doing now, but obviously at a much more complex level. In my work with clients, I use a wide variety of techniques, not just transits, which is what we use in general horoscopes. I use a combination of traditional and more modern astrological techniques when it comes to the forecasting side of things. I also do compatibility readings. So if you want to figure out how you can improve your relationships, how you can make a relationship work better, how it can function better, that is also something that we can focus on. I also do relocation astrology using astrocartography and relocated charts, which are also very, very, very important. Let me see, what else? So compatibility, natal chart interpretation, forecasting, relocation. Also, for existing clients, I offer electional astrology services. So what does that mean? It means that if you're looking to launch a business, if you're looking to maybe generate something, metaphorically, let's say, give birth to something new, such as a business comes to mind, but also, for example, if you want to get married, electional astrology is fantastic because it helps you select the most auspicious time and date for that to happen. You always have to remember that whatever is born at a specific time is going to carry throughout its entire life the energy of that particular moment in time. So once the arrow has left has left the bow, it has already traced its arc, which is why it is so important when you begin things, when you say I do, when you incorporate your company, and so on. So that service is available for existing clients. So written in the stars-astrology.com, that is where you can find me. And all consultations happen via Zoom, via video call, and we also record them. If you don't want them to be recorded, that's absolutely fine. But most clients want them to be recorded so that they can return to our conversation, take notes, reflect on things, and so on. Now we're going to go into the update for each of the 12 zodiac signs. And before we do that, please remember to listen to the update for your rising sign. I repeat, rising sign. Because that is how these general horoscopes are built, with the rising sign in mind. And if you don't know what your rising sign is, obviously you can listen to the update for your sun sign. But my recommendation is find out your rising sign, and you can do that by figuring out your time of birth. You're not going to figure it out. You're probably going to ask someone, such as parents, or maybe it's written down on your birth certificate. And there are online natal chart generators such as astro-seek.com or astro.com, where you can input your birthday details and your natal chart will be generated, and it will show you, hey, this is your ascendant, this is your rising sign. And then you can listen to the update for your rising sign. So without further ado, let us move on to the updates for Aries. Aries suns and Aries risings. My lovely, lovely, lovely Aries. 9th of August, full moon in Aquarius, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This full moon brings a culminating point in the following sectors of your life. It could be in several of them, or it could be in one of them. Friendship, communities, organizations that you're a part of, goals. So some of you may reach the sort of like peak, the culminating point when it comes to one of your long-term goals, when it comes to one of your long-term objectives. This objective might have something to do with your career, with something that you've been putting a lot of energy into, something that you've been putting a lot of time into. It could feel like you have achieved something major in this direction. You might also be accomplishing a goal concerning your health, your physical body, but also potentially concerning your life direction. I know that sounds very, I don't know, philosophical. That sounds very complex, very abstract. But it may feel like you have this aha moment where you say, hey, I'm where I want to be, or this is where I am on my journey towards me achieving this long-term objective that I've set out for myself. So as much as you could be achieving a goal, you might also be kind of like taking stock of how far you have come. And I think it is always important to do that, especially when it comes to long-term goals. It's important to set milestones along the way and to say, hey, maybe I'm not yet where I want to be, but here I am, much further down the line than where I was when it all started, let's say. You're also reaching a little bit of a crossroads. So you're probably thinking a lot about the future. This full moon is putting the spotlight on the future, on what's next. And as you are focusing on the future, you might be again evaluating, you might be taking stock of who is going to be with you, who's going to be by your side when it comes to your long-term kind of like plans future-wise, and who maybe needs to get out of your life. Who do you need to distance yourselves from, my lovely Aries? It could be that you're going to be taking some distance from an existing group of people, a friend, a business collaboration, a business collaborator, a partner. Some of you could be reaching the end of the road when it comes to a partnership. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship, but for some people, especially Aries risings, this full moon could be the sort of like end of the line when it comes to a long-term relationship, a long-term partnership that has not been working, or that has been under significant pressure for a long, long, long time. There is a possibility of conflicts at the time of this full moon. It could be that this is the final conflict. I know that sounds very dramatic, but it could be the final conflict that you have with someone. You might say, okay, this is it. I am done. I am done with the proverbial BS. And you might feel like, hey, I got to be real about this. I have to do what's right for me. I have to do what is right for my future. Mars is going to be in a harmonious aspect to Uranus and to Pluto. So if you decide to say goodbye to someone, be it a community, a friend, a group of people, an organization, or even a partner, it may feel like other people sort of like immediately kind of like come in and fill in the gap, if that makes sense. So if you're saying goodbye to an existing business collaborator, it could be that immediately another potential business collaborator comes in and you know exactly who you're going to be working with moving forward. So as much as you might feel a tiny little bit alone, you're actually not alone, Aries, and I do want to emphasize that. Taurus suns, Taurus risings, 9th of August, full moon in Aquarius, active 3 days before, 3 days after. What's cooking, Taurus? My dear Taurians, this full moon is putting the spotlight on your career, your public status, your public reputation. So not just career, your place in the world, your place in society. Results, outcomes in one or several of these sectors. So some of you could be reaching a culminating point professionally. Some of you could be closing an important professional chapter. You could be saying goodbye to an existing role, an existing industry that you've been working in. You could be saying goodbye to a company. You could be saying goodbye to a sector that you've built a career in. There is a very strong focus on walking away from something from a professional perspective, if you ask me. There's also a possibility that a figure of authority, a leader, might be walking away from the company that you're working for, and that makes room for new management, new leadership. So it could be that you're not maybe walking away, but maybe a boss or a manager is walking away. Maybe they are retiring. That's also very much a possibility. It could also be very clear at the time of this full moon where your company is headed in terms of long-term direction, long-term goals, and this might involve new rules, new hierarchies, new management, new requirements, new tasks, but it might also involve potentially restructuring. So some people, it's not necessarily you, it could be people around you, it could be people in your team. Some people could be made redundant, just as an FYI. So I would keep an eye on what announcements are happening in the professional sphere, because the day-to-day work life that you're gonna sort of like return to is probably gonna look very, very different. There is a chance, however, that some of you could be literally saying goodbye to your job. And I feel like you're a tiny little bit conflicted about that if this is happening, because you might have decided that you've had enough. You might have decided that you no longer want to put up with certain people. You no longer want to put up with maybe circumstances that have been weighing you down. And if you do decide to walk away from something professionally, to me, it looks like something else really quickly is taking its place. So I just see you still being busy. I see you still being in like work, so to speak. I see you still being engaged in professional activities. If you're leaving one job for another, you're probably going to be much better paid in a different job. If you're leaving one industry for another, you're probably going to be much better paid also. Speaking of your status and reputation, this full moon is putting the spotlight on how you show up in the world. And I do believe that you're maybe leaving behind an old kind of like image that the world had of you. So let's say if you identified with the role of the Okay, let me give you an example of the traditional wife. So let's leave career aside, right? If you identified with a specific role in the eyes of the world, if the world thought of you in a certain manner, you could be surprising the world a lot at the time of this full moon, because you might be stepping into a completely unexpected role, I'd say. So maybe all of a sudden you announce that you're launching your own business, that you are going to be an entrepreneur, and the world could have thoughts, they could have opinions, and not all of them may be supportive, but that is absolutely okay. There's also a possibility that a parent might be dealing with something health-wise. My massive recommendation, and of course I'm not a doctor, so please take the advice of your doctor if anything comes up. This information is for entertainment purposes only. There is a possibility that something sudden might come up on the health front, especially for a parent. A rapid intervention seems to be key, and quickly sort of like taking action and like talking to people and reaching out to the right people is probably going to be very, very, very helpful in this situation. Last but not least, something could break at home, or something might need to be repaired really quickly, and I do believe, as much as it might cause some frustration, that you're going to be able to make it work in no time. Geminis, Gemini suns and Gemini risings. 9th of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after, we have a full moon in Aquarius, putting the spotlight on your travel axis and your educational axis, and also putting the spotlight on in-laws for those of you who have anything to do with in-laws, who have in-laws in the first place. This full moon is also putting the spotlight on legal matters. So you're probably going to hear news, you're probably going to get results concerning your education. So if you are applying for university, a PhD, a master's degree, whatever it is, you're probably going to hear news in regards to this. If you are involved in any sort of like legal process, legal project, I don't know if I would call it a project, but hey, you get what I'm saying. This full moon does bring news. It does bring outcomes. The outcomes are absolutely mixed. I'm just going to say it. So if you are not admitted, or if you're not kind of like accepted into your university of choice, for example, it doesn't mean that you're not accepted into any other university, but it might not be your first choice. So I feel like it's a little bit of a mixed bag. You're getting your results. I feel like you're moving towards your desired outcome, or the greater sort of like goal, but there is a tiny bit of disappointment here, if you ask me. If your children are waiting to hear back from their university of choice, then again, the same thing could happen. They might not be accepted into their first, or they might be rejected from their first sort of like option, but that doesn't mean that they won't get a yes from somewhere else. They might actually get a big, significant yes, but they might really sort of like have to adjust their course. Legal matters, mixed bag once again. It feels like you might need to take a bit of a win with a loss, or a win with, I don't know, like something bitter. Let's say you might need to give up on something in order to fully kind of like access this win, so to speak. If anyone is involved in sort of like custody matters, if you're I don't know, in the midst of a divorce and you're dealing with custody kind of like legal proceedings, I don't think you're gonna get maybe like full custody, for example. You might need to deal with like, I don't know what it's called, like splitting the custody between two parents. If the result that you're getting from a legal entity is not what you wanted, is not what you expected, do not hesitate, and I repeat, do not hesitate to rapidly reach out to someone else and say, hey, can you help me with this? Get an extra sort of like pair of eyes to double check that the result is correct, to double check that it cannot be sort of like pushed back against. I feel like if something is not to your liking, or if something is not aligned to what you expected, you can act quickly, and you can ask for like a second opinion, or you can ask for support from someone else, and they might help you reach your desired outcome. Speaking of in-laws, there is a possibility that in-laws are struggling a little bit. Maybe they're dealing with something from a health perspective. There's also a possibility that you might not be fully in agreement with them on a matter concerning the future or on a matter concerning children. And speaking of children, you might not be in agreement fully with where your child wants to study. That's also a possibility. If you're traveling around this time, I would be, let me just put it this way. I would be open to things not going as planned. I would be open to having to rebook flights, having to maybe delay travel, having to postpone it, having to cut it short. And if you are traveling, my massive recommendation is to get insurance, including from a health perspective. I mean, probably nothing's going to happen, but better safe than sorry, so to speak. I feel like you're very inspired by a block somehow, Geminis. So if something doesn't go your way, I feel like immediately it gives you an idea as to how to go about it in a different way, or how to kind of change course very rapidly in order to get something even better than the thing that you got maybe sort of like a no for, or that you got rejected for. That is Geminis. Now let us move on to Cancerians, Cancer suns and Cancer risings. 9th of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after Cancerians. This full moon puts the spotlight on your financial axis. Dun, 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 dun. You are probably gonna have to pay money. Who are you paying money to? I mean, it could be the government, it could be paying off your credit card, it could be paying off debt, it could also be paying money on behalf of someone else. Someone else is like dealing with something, maybe a family member is dealing with something and you are helping them from a financial perspective. This might be putting a tiny little bit of a strain on you financially, but I do believe you have the resources. Ultimately, I do believe you have the resources, and I do believe somehow the resources that you're maybe kind of like helping a family member with are going to come back to you, maybe in a different form, maybe in the form of a different kind of asset, let's say. Speaking of assets, this full moon does put the spotlight on joint resources and shared assets. You might take a decision together with, for example, a spouse in terms of what you're going to do with a joint asset. Are you going to keep a property? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to rent it out? Are you going to remodel it? Are you going to renovate it? Are you going to whatever it is that you're gonna do? I feel like that is going to be top of mind. There's also a possibility that you might be looking at how much taxes you're paying from a professional perspective, and you might not be very happy. You might not be very satisfied with that, and potentially look for kind of like alternatives in terms of how to maybe pay less taxes. So maybe you might look at kind of like additional expenses or things of this nature. I do believe that maybe a source of financial frustration is actually likely to spur you into action and to get you thinking about maybe like different options, or like to consider novel approaches when it comes to how you manage your money, how you manage your assets, and maybe how you do that together with a partner. So it could be your spouse, or it could be a business partner. Speaking of business partnerships, there is a possibility that a business partnership might come to an end. You're paying them whatever it is that you owe them, or they're paying you whatever it is that they owe you, and everyone goes on their merry way. The full moon also puts the spotlight on transformation. What sort of transformation, you might ask? Career-wise, I dare say, it feels like something is no longer working for you, and as much as you've invested time and effort and energy into it, it just feels like too confusing. It just feels like too unclear. It feels too uncertain. And something else from a professional perspective, and especially from a financial perspective, seems to be working really well. It actually seems to be taking off. So why not pivot? Why not channel more of your energy into something that is actually working really well, even though it's not exactly what you had in mind, or you kind of like just did it on a whim, so to speak. Leos, Leo suns, Leo risings. 9th of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after, we have a full moon in Aquarius, activating your house of partnerships, interactions with others, collaborations. And let's not forget the house of open enemies and adversaries. So, a partnership is under fire. I'm just going to say it. It is being tested. It is going through a difficult time. It's at a crossroads, this partnership. It could be a romantic relationship, but it could also be a business partnership. It's very likely that it's something there's something sort of like formal about this partnership. There is maybe like a work connection, or like a tangible, concrete, sort of like practical collaboration that is sort of like essential to this partnership. Another kind of partnership that could be sort of like in the spotlight. For example, let's say you've been working for a long time with a business coach or with a therapist, and that kind of relationship is also front and center. Something is not working anymore, so you have to find either a new way of functioning, or you have to find, I wanted to say another partner. You have to find a way to part ways. You have to find a way to break free from this, I don't want to call it dysfunctional, but unproductive situation. So there is a possibility you might say goodbye to your therapist, your coach, your accountant. You might also stop working with someone that you looked up to. Maybe you admired them. Maybe you thought they were a mentor of some sort. You might have a big disagreement with them and realize, hey, we are no longer on the same page. You might also be saying goodbye if you're working with a lawyer, a legal advisor. You might say goodbye to them. I don't feel like you're on the same page. The thing is, if you're saying goodbye to someone, you might immediately replace them. Or there could be someone else that's on your radar as we speak that could help you with whatever it is that this other person was helping you with. So let's say if you're saying goodbye to your legal advisor, you might have someone kind of like in mind that you're going to reach to immediately, and they're going to jump in and they're going to sort of like help you very, very quickly, let's say. From a relationship perspective, there is a possibility that your significant other, if you're seeing someone, is going through a challenging time. There is a possibility that they might be dealing with some difficulties from a legal standpoint, from an educational standpoint, maybe when it comes to their parents also, maybe when it comes to a travel-related matter, and they are very resistant to receiving help, receiving support, and that probably annoys you, and that's why you might have a little bit of an argument. Sometimes people don't want to take any sort of like help or assistance from anyone else, and that is okay. So even if you see them struggling, remember that you can't force anyone to accept your help. In a nutshell. You might also have a bit of a disagreement with a partner over a matter concerning in-laws. My recommendation is to take a bit of a step back and to find sort of alternative solutions as to how to deal with this matter that you're fighting over. Because even though it might feel like it's a huge blocker or it's a huge issue, if you just kind of like switch gears a little bit, if you just kind of like take a different route, metaphorically speaking, if you just sort of like have a bit of a brainstorm, I feel like you can find together with your spouse, for example, a really good and quick solution to whatever is kind of like getting in the way. Speaking of adversaries and enemies, let's call them adversaries, your competition is going through a tough time. Now, you might be thinking, Rux, that's great. Yes, it is. That's what I have to say. There is a possibility that one of your competitors, for example, might be going out of business, or they might be struggling, or they might be in hot water from a legal perspective. If you, let's think of this from a business standpoint. If you feel like this is your chance to jump in and to try to, I don't know, like buy them out, or maybe turn things around. So turn them from like an adversary into an ally or into a business partner, then yes, the astrology kind of like supports that. So if you see someone struggling and you're thinking, this is my competition, I'd better let them struggle. I would also think about it a little bit differently and say, is this my chance to jump in and kind of like take advantage by actually kind of like helping them, and I'm helping myself at the same time. Maybe there's benefits for me also. I feel like you are brimming with ideas. You're having some really important encounters at the time of this full moon, my dear Leos. Um, People who can help you achieve your goals, people who can help you kind of like achieve some really important objectives that you have. And you might not see any of this coming. So talk to people, go out, connect with people, and do be open to new people and new energy. That is my recommendation. Virgos, Virgo suns, Virgo risings. 9th of August, active. 3 days before, 3 days after. I'm doing this thing with my hand, and I'm hoping you can intuit what I'm trying to say. Virgos, this full moon puts the spotlight on your 6th house. It actually puts the spotlight on your 6th house, 12th house axis. So the axis of work, health, daily habits, mental health versus physical health. Something is reaching a culminating point when it comes to your work sector. So maybe you are wrapping up a project. Maybe you are wrapping up a job. It could be either or. Whatever it is that you're wrapping up, you do not seem to be 100% happy and satisfied. You might be wrapping things up in a state of conflict, in a state of disagreement with other people. There could have been disagreements with people on your team. There may be disagreements with clients. There may be disagreements with collaborators, with people who had kind of like something to add to this project. There's a chance that a project work-wise might be coming to an end, also because of disagreements from a financial perspective. So maybe you're not getting paid the amount of money that you want to get paid, or maybe there's no longer any funding. Maybe a client is leaving because they no longer have as much money as they used to have, or they need to cut down on expenses. And as much as this could feel disappointing, my big recommendation is to see it as an opportunity to make room for something much more engaging, much more exciting, work-wise. I literally feel like one door shuts and potentially other surprising, exciting, unexpected doors open from a work perspective. So don't be afraid to say goodbye to a project or even to a job, because if you're stepping into a different maybe role or job, or if you're saying yes to new clients, you seem to be thrilled. You seem to be thrilled because you might be making more money, you're meeting new exciting people, you're working in an environment that is very stimulating from a mental perspective, and it also feels like it's sort of like opening the door for you to transform your career for the longer term, and to kind of like dip your toes into the waters of maybe like new sectors or new industries. So yeah, don't worry if you're wrapping up a job. I'm just gonna say it. You might also need to decide, hey, I'm no longer gonna work with these people. Why? Because they don't pay, or because they're hard to work with, or because they are not my target audience anymore. Now, from a health perspective, you might need to spend some money at the time of this full moon. It's very likely, it's very possible. There might be something coming up to the surface, something that's potentially causing maybe a little bit of like confusion, or a little bit of like fear. Maybe you've postponed addressing this matter health wise. Maybe a lot of maybes. Basically, do it. Now, obviously, I'm not a doctor, so please take the advice of your doctor above everything else. If anything comes to mind from a health perspective, if anything comes up from a health perspective, do not postpone, take action, pay the money, go see the specialist, and they're probably going to put you out of your pain. Oh, God, I hope I haven't used this expression in the wrong context. So they're going to kind of like help you no longer be in pain because of a health issue. and they're going to do that very rapidly, very quickly, and in a really sort of like good way for your health. So whatever it is that you're grappling with from an emotional perspective, maybe you've got resistance to going to this like treatment or doctor or specialist because you don't know what to expect. To me, it looks like astrologically things are going to turn out really well, but you do have to overcome this fear. Otherwise, you might be physically in pain. That's also very much a possibility. And yeah, maybe you don't want to spend money, but from a health perspective, but I feel like if you don't spend the money, things could get, I don't want to say unbearable, but like really difficult in terms of like how you feel in the body. And last but not least, this could also be a time when you completely transform your day-to-day habits. You might feel like enough is enough. Maybe you've been resistant to making some of these changes from a habits perspective because you thought, hey, I don't have a strong enough incentive, or why should I make these changes? Well, it looks like you are going to be incentivized to make these changes at the time of this full moon. And if you make them immediately, you're probably going to very quickly see some really, really good results. My dear Libras, Libra suns and Libra risings, 9th of August, active, 3 days before, 3 days after, we have a full moon in Aquarius. I mean, I did say that this full moon is chaotic. I said it. I'm going to say it again. It is chaotic, but for some people, especially for you Libras, it might also be fun. Can fun be chaotic? Yes, it can absolutely be chaotic. You might be, I don't know, going out, you might be attending a party, you might be connecting with, I don't know, like a romantic interest, you might be going out on a date, and things may be chaotic as you're doing all of the aforementioned Libras. Now, a lot of things can happen at the same time. So you might have fun. You might be focused on love and romantic love. But at the same time, you might also experience frustration or disappointment when it comes to the interaction with someone. So you might be disappointed in the interaction that you have with a friend or with a romantic partner. You may actually decide to no longer see someone romantically. If you have something planned, if you're in a relationship and you have something fun planned together with your significant other, I would also potentially expect a change of plans maybe at the last minute. And as much as you might be disappointed in that, and you might be thinking, oh my God, we've been planning this for such a long time, why can it not happen? Maybe your partner has to work, or maybe they have to travel for work. My recommendation is still go to the event, still go to the concert, still go to the party, still go out, because I repeat, you're probably going to have a lot of fun, and maybe you did not see this coming, and you might even meet people, like-minded individuals that you really resonate with. So don't let someone else's, maybe, I don't want to call it rejection, but don't let the disappointment caused by someone get in the way of you actually really celebrating and enjoying your life, because you are having fun, you are enjoying life. I feel like you're also having this aha moment in terms of what really makes you happy. And as you're having this aha moment, Libras, you might be distancing yourselves from certain people, including some friends, some romantic partners, maybe some people that you looked up to. There could be kind of like secrets coming to the surface concerning certain people in your life, and you might say, hey, I have had enough with the BS. I've had enough. That's it. I'm not wasting my time anymore. Mars, Uranus, and Pluto are forming a grand trine in air. You are very inspired mentally. Unexpected sort of like invitations or news from people might come into your life, again, unexpectedly, out of the blue. You might be able to like travel at short notice. You might be invited somewhere at short notice. You might have a moment of enlightenment out of the blue. You might decide to reach out to someone that you haven't spoken to in a long time, maybe to invite them out. So again, I repeat, don't let whatever someone else is doing kind of like rain on your parade. I also feel like, as much as some people don't get you, you're probably going to feel a little bit misunderstood, Libras. I'm just going to say it. There are people out there who get you, who want to hang out with you, who are on your side, who are your tribe. So find them. Or just kind of like be on the lookout for them because they're probably already around you. For those of you who have kids, there is a possibility that a child might have an unexpected sort of like piece of news to deliver to you. It could have something to do with their decisions long term. You might be kind of like having mixed feelings, Libras, but ultimately you're probably going to have to say, hey, this is your life. You got to do what you got to do. And I respect your decision, even if I do not agree with it. Scorpio, Scorpio suns and Scorpio risings. 9th of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after. We have a full moon in your 4th house. This lunation, Scorpios, puts the spotlight on home, family, roots, the past, maybe even your home country if you're living someplace else. Things are reaching a culminating point at home. What does that mean? So for some people, this could mean you're moving. For some people, this could mean you're wrapping something up at home. Maybe the process of like remodeling, maybe the process of renovation. There could be a crisis at home. I can also say this, Scorpios. You might reach, what is it called? Your boiling point? Let me just Google it. Boiling point. Meaning. I do that sometimes. Yes, you might reach your boiling point. I mean, how fitting that is for a water sign. And you might say, hey, enough is enough. So if you've been living with someone, if you have a housemate, if you have a lodger, for example, you might say, I've had enough. You are not a good lodger. Sayonara, thank you, and goodbye. Some of you could be moving out of the house that you're living in with someone else, such as, I don't know, maybe like parents. There is a possibility that something may break at home, something that's been under pressure for a long time. So maybe it hasn't been working properly for some time, or maybe it needed to be fixed for a long time and now it stops working altogether. So you might need to fix it or you might need to replace it. And I don't think that's going to be a negotiable thing. Speaking of home, there's a lot of work for you to do at home. I do have to say this, or a lot of work that you might have to do for family members. So if you have kids or if you have older parents, for example, you might need to help them with something. It could be with them moving, or it could be with looking after them, or kind of like driving them to like an appointment or something along those lines. Now, speaking of appointments, there is a possibility that a family member might be struggling a little bit with a health matter and maybe they've been postponing going to the doctors. This is the time when they might have to go to the doctors, so you might kind of like have to sort of like be there with them or offer emotional support or even help them in a practical way in one form or another. There's also a possibility you might have an argument with someone at home, maybe because they are being very resistant to change, resistant to doing things differently, or maybe because they insist on doing things differently, even if it doesn't make any sense to you. So again, to me, it looks like you gotta either agree to disagree and move on, or and let them be, or agree to disagree. And like either or, agree to disagree. Both options are agree to disagree. Help them regardless with whatever it is that they are kind of like fixated on, or whatever it is that their decision is at the moment. Mars, Uranus, and Pluto are in a grand trine in the sky at the time. Big news coming from the family, unexpected news, news of transformation, news of leaving things behind, of saying goodbye to the status quo in some shape or form from the family side. There could also be news, for example, along the lines of a family member selling their home, selling their property. And again, I don't know if you're 100% on board with it, but I repeat, I don't believe there's much that you can do in this instance. Whatever's going on at home might also impact your public life, your public status. You could be kind of announcing to the world that you are going through some changes at home, and these changes, some of them might involve a saying goodbye to the status quo in one form or another. Sagittarius. Sagittarius suns and Sagittarius risings. 9th of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after, we have a full moon in Aquarius, activating your travel axis, your educational axis. And hey, this full moon is also putting the spotlight on some people in your life, Sagittarians, especially siblings, neighbors, cousins, maybe colleagues. Another sector of your life that this full moon is putting the spotlight on is your preferred mode of transportation. Now, I did say at the very beginning of this video, I don't know if you jumped straight to your sign or not, I did say that this full moon brings some chaos. And I am going to reiterate that. So there can be some chaos landing on your doorstep, coming from one or several of the following people: cousins, siblings, neighbors. Whatever it is, the news is mixed. On the one hand, maybe there's a sense of kind of like disappointment or dissatisfaction that this person brings with them. On the other hand, I feel like if you kind of like try to think a little bit outside of the box, if you come up with maybe a different standpoint, a different viewpoint, a different perspective on the situation, you can help this person, or you can kind of like get them out of a funk, or you can maybe support them in finding a sense of stability once again. Children could also be going through a little bit of a tough time concerning education, concerning maybe their studies. They might be struggling, and I think if they're struggling, if anyone in your life is struggling, and you're faced with having to like help them, having to support them, you don't have to, but you're probably going to want to. Remember that you're not alone. Remember that you have other friends. Remember that you have a community. Remember that there's other people around you that you can sort of like reach out to, and maybe they can jump in, they can chime in and help you with this matter that someone dear to you, especially I'm looking at like children and siblings, has brought onto your doorstep, so to speak. Difficult conversations are probably going to be the norm. Difficult conversations with loved ones, difficult conversations with neighbors, with children, with cousins, potentially, maybe even with friends. Difficult conversations about the future, difficult conversations about what needs to be left behind. Difficult conversations also concerning maybe a trip. Speaking of trips and traveling, your car might need to be fixed. Your travel plans might need to be adjusted. Remember that if you're dealing with any issues, if there's any bumps in the road, if there's any kind of like missed flights, any cancellations, you are not on your own. Talk to people, like send a message, reach out to a friend, because they're probably going to be able to like chime in or like jump in and get you out of a pickle immediately, I'd say. If you're looking to sell something, you are probably going to sell it, but maybe at a lower price than you thought you would. If you're looking to buy something, I would be careful, especially when it comes to cars, transportation, anything technological, because Mercury is still retrograde, and you might buy something that afterwards needs to be repaired. So if you're buying something, make sure that you keep the receipt, make sure that you have the warranty intact. And last but not least, this is a time when important people are coming into your life. People that you didn't see coming, people that are probably going to have a positive impact on your future, but they might come through the channel of a difficulty. So you're dealing with something difficult, and then you meet some really cool people. So there's always a silver lining, my dear Sagittarians. Now let us move on to Capricorns. My lovely Capricorns, Capricorn suns and Capricorn risings. Full moon in Aquarius, 9th of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This is putting the spotlight on your financial axis, on your money. What are you paying money on or for? Basically, I see you directing some of your resources, Capricorns, some of your hard-earned cash towards one or several of the following: home and living situation, family, relocation, maybe renovation, something big, a big purchase for the home. Maybe you are supporting a family member from a financial perspective in some shape or form. Maybe you're putting down the deposit for a house. All of these are possible. It feels like this is a big accomplishment somehow, Capricorns, that you are kind of like experiencing, but it costs, and it costs a lot. And you might be a tiny little bit worried because you're thinking, oh my God, here go my savings. Here goes the pot of money that I've been building up for a long time. There could also be changes in terms of your source of income. You might leave behind a source of income, potentially say goodbye to an existing, maybe like a work project or client. But if that happens, I really want to stress this out. If you are saying goodbye to an existing source of income, you are essentially making room immediately for a more lucrative one, for bigger clients, better clients, a better paid job. There is going to be a grand air trine in the sky between Mars, Uranus, and Pluto. If you feel like you are no longer appreciated in your existing workplace, if you feel like you're undervalued, if you feel like, hey, this person got a promotion and I didn't get it and I absolutely deserve it, and this person got a raise and I didn't get it and I deserve it. This frustration could be just the incentive that you need in order to look for another job, or in order to apply for another job, or in order to start your company or to go freelance. And I gotta tell you, you are probably going to thank the lords of difficulty, the gods of challenge, because they are pushing you on a much more fulfilling path from a financial and also from a professional perspective. So dissatisfaction or hitting a wall sometimes is exactly what we need in order to improve our lives. I mean, let's face it, most people don't improve their lives or don't choose change unless they are forced. And if you feel like, I can no longer say yes to this, I've had enough, then that's great, because immediately it looks like something else is coming up. Immediately it feels like you've got the right ideas, you've got the right thinking that is going to propel you forward, both financially and professionally. And if we leave money aside for a little bit, I feel like your value system is going through a big shift, Capricorns. What you used to value, especially when it comes to family values, when it comes to like home living situation, something that you were very attached to in the past from a values perspective is no longer cutting it for you. And that is okay. And once you accept that, and once you acknowledge that, you are essentially making room for rapid, exciting, and very auspicious transformation in your life. So don't let rigid attachment to a set of values get in the way of a much better life. That's it. That's what I had to say. Now let us move on to Aquarius. Aquarius suns and Aquarius risings. 9th of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This full moon puts the spotlight on you Aquarians, fellow Aquarians. I mean, I'm an Aquarius sun. Fellow Aquarians, all eyes are on you. All eyes are on you because you have things to say. All eyes are on you because you are reaching a culminating point in your life. You are potentially shedding your own skin, metaphorically speaking. Your old identity, you're getting rid of it, and you're stepping into a new role. You're stepping into a different timeline, different story, different adventure, I want to call it, from a life direction standpoint. So all eyes are on you because you're no longer the person that the world used to know. You are maturing. You are facing your fears. You are stepping into a place of greater authenticity. You are calling things by their name. And I do believe you're going to have some hard but important conversations at the time of this full moon, as you acknowledge that you no longer want to be the person that you used to be, as you acknowledge that you're stepping away from an old identity, from an old path. You're probably going to have to let the world know. You're probably going to have to let people know. When I say the world, it's probably going to be a handful of people. people close to you. It could be people that maybe you look up to. It could be people that you admired. It could be people that are maybe are not going to take the news very lightly. They might have opinions. They might try to persuade you not to leave behind this role. And to me, it looks like you are ready for transformation. Pluto, Uranus, and Mars are all coming together in a beautiful, supportive grand trine saying, you are being reborn, Aquarians. You are going through a massive, massive, massive rebirth, a rebranding, but it's more than that. It's a rebirth. You are shedding the old skin. You are stepping into your truth. You're stepping into a place of massive, complete authenticity, and the world is going to be surprised. But hey, I mean, that's your hallmark. That's your prerogative. You are here to surprise the world. You are here to shock the world, Aquarians. And you believe in the changes that you're making. You believe in the rebrand. You believe in the new life path. You're also willing to stand up for what you believe in. And you're probably going to have to. You're probably, I repeat, going to have the hard conversations, maybe say to some people, hey, back off. You don't get to tell me what to do. This full moon also seems to put the spotlight, Aquarians, on maybe a test that you have to pass. It could be something that tests your knowledge, that tests your skills. You might also decide that you're no longer interested in learning something. You're no longer interested in your knowledge being tested, and you are actually keen and excited and eager to learn something new altogether. And I feel like you are learning a lot. You're learning a lot about yourselves. You're learning a lot about what you truly care about. You are learning a lot about what makes you happy. And your mind seems to be on fire. And maybe as a result of that, you stop investing time in some of the old, maybe topics or sectors that you specialized in, I'd say. This full moon can also put the spotlight on your appearance. So you might change your appearance, you might change your looks. It could put the spotlight on your physical body. You might go through a drastic kind of like shift from a physical body perspective. So for example, some people might decide to cut their hair, to chop it all off. So a lot of things can happen in this direction. There's also a possibility that you could be learning a lot of things about your body and as a result decide to make some dramatic changes, maybe in terms of how you take care of yourselves. And that is Aquarius. And last but not least, Pisces. Pisces suns and Pisces risings. 9th of August, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This full moon is putting the spotlight on your 12th house and on your 6th house. So this full moon is bringing to your attention something that has been sabotaging your finances, your savings, your money, your self-worth, your work, your self-esteem, and maybe even your health. Now, the thing with astrology, Pisces, is that it is a symbolic language. So astrology doesn't predict concrete material manifestation. I always give examples because it's easier for people to remember things when you offer examples and scenarios. So this full moon can bring one or several of these topics to your attention. You need to let go of something in a nutshell. You might need to let go of something that's eating into your financial security and stability. You may have to cancel some subscriptions, for example, or stop paying for something that you are no longer using, or stop paying a lot for services that you could get cheaper someplace else. So do take stock of how much money you're paying for what, because this could be a good time to reduce your expenses. You could also have a payment that you need to make for a health issue. Now the payment could be a little bit bigger than you thought it would be. So the whole thing could be more expensive than you anticipated. You might also decide to stop paying for like a service that you were using in your business, for example. So if you have a subscription to, I don't know, like a specific type of software, you may cancel the direct debit, okay? If you have employees, there is a possibility you might terminate someone's contract or no longer collaborate with someone. They might be angry, but I feel like you're in the right because you're no longer deriving as much value as you used to derive from working with this person. I do believe this is a moment of like clearing things out of your life, Pisces, and you might also be clearing out of your life things in the home. So maybe getting rid of like old stuff that you no longer use. Maybe you're doing like a massive kind of you're engaging in a massive kind of like donation project, so to speak. So maybe you do still have stuff that is functional, but you don't use it. I mean, of course, it could be it could be in everyone's interest to give it to a person who actually does make use of that maybe particular like tool or object. Something that you didn't see coming may pop up in your home life as well. So a family member could let you know out of a blue, all of a sudden, hey, I've got news. I'm moving to a different country, or I'm, I don't know, going to be traveling for the next 6 months. To you, it could feel like a tiny little bit of a loss, maybe because you used to spend a lot of time with this person, maybe because you're very close. At the same time, my big recommendation would be to remember that people have to follow their own sort of like path and journey through life, and don't let your own maybe, I don't know, like disappointment or sadness get in the way of like celebrating this development in the life of maybe a sibling or a parent or something along those lines. Last but not least, Pisces, make sure that you get plenty of rest and sleep at the time of this full moon. You've been running on fumes, you've been working so hard, you've been spinning your wheels, and I feel like there's been a lot going on in the workspace as well. So something that's been stressing you out in the workspace is probably going to come to a close. But at the same time, if you feel powerless somehow, if you feel like, hey, I give up, I just have to let the chips fall where they may, the surprising thing is that you might find the solution that you've been looking for all along, or that things might resolve themselves. Sometimes when you do nothing, things resolve themselves. I know it sounds like a miracle, but it does happen. And that is Pisces. Folks, I want to thank you for tuning in. Please let me know in the comments how this full moon unfolds for you. And even if I don't reply to all the comments, do know that I read them. If you're on Instagram and on TikTok, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Rux Unbelievable is my Instagram handle. Especially on Instagram, I post a lot of stories, a lot of like personal updates, and so on. If you like my content, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, a share, a subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, share it also with like your friends, with your family. And you can also make a donation to my channel using the thanks button underneath the video. And last but not least, obviously, if you want to work with me, you can find me on my website, writteninthestars-astrology.com. I'm a full-time consulting astrologer, and it is my mission and my passion to help people reconnect with their soul's intentions and make the most of this life with the use of astrology, with the help of astrology. So writteninthestars-astrology.com. I will see you next time. Bye.